Hi, everyone. Welcome back to class. Today, we're going to continue our unit on the right triangle. Before we move into new material, we're going to start with a quick warm-up, reviewing labeling sides of a triangle. So I'm going to be handing out whiteboards and markers to you guys so that you guys can practice on your own, and then we're going to go over it in about 5 minutes. The things that I want you guys to write down are the hypotenuse, the legs, which are the opposite and the adjacent. And then I want you to also label the right angle on the triangle. So I want you to draw it and I want you to label those things for me. Awesome. So I'm going to draw out what it should look like when you're done. So you're going to have the hypotenuse here. And then you're going to have the opposite here. Drew them both in. You're going to have the opposite here and then the adjacent here. And then we know that our right angle is right there because the question gives us the box in the when you draw out your triangle. You know that it's a 90-degree angle. That's what the box is there for, the square. Okay. So can anybody tell me what is called the legs? We're going to assume that the student responds with the legs are the opposite and the adjacent angle. And then I will ask, hey, what is the hypotenuse? Can anybody describe that to me? And the student response that I would imagine would be the hypotenuse. Cool. All right. So now we're going to take what we learned from the warm up today, and we're going to apply that to Pythagorean theorem. Okay. So it's important when doing Pythag, I'm going to refer to it as Pythag, it's easier. When doing Pythag, it is important to know what all sides of the triangle are and their meanings behind them. So let's say that we have a triangle, just like the one that we just drew. What you're going to get is numbers. What you're going to get is numbers on both sides like that. But obviously one is missing. Okay. We have to figure out how to find that missing side. And in order to do that, we have to use an equation called Pythagorean theorem. Okay. Can anybody tell me what Pythagorean theorem is? I'm assuming the student response is a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Perfect. That's exactly what it is. Can anybody tell me what the a, the b, and the c represent? I'm assuming that the student response is not sure because they haven't learned this yet. Cool. So the A, the B, and the C all represent something different. The A and the B represent either one of the legs. So that means that they're interchangeable. You can put A in for B and B in for A. It will not change the way that the equation is set up. Okay. So knowing that A and B are the legs or the opposite and the adjacent angle or sides, what letter would represent the hypotenuse? I'm assuming the student response is C. Awesome. C, that's it. So when we're solving the equation, we have to know what's our A and B, what's our C, okay, based off of the numbers that are on here, right? So you could tell that we don't have the hypotenuse, so we're going to put a question mark there because that's what we're solving for, okay? So in order to solve Pythagorean theorem, you need to plug these numbers into your equation to get an answer. And yes, there is a little bit of algebra involved, but we will go through that together as a class. Okay. So we are going to write out our equation. Okay. What is our A? What is our A? Our A could be, assuming the student response is 9, My response would be, awesome. Can it be 8 if you wanted it to be? Wait, student response hopefully is they're interchangeable. You can use whatever one you want. Okay. So perfect. That's a great response. That is the correct response. So what letter are we solving for when we're using Pythagorean theorem? Assuming the student response is C, because that's the question mark on the triangle. That's the only side that we are missing. Okay. So then my question to the students or to you guys is, what does the equation look like when you plug in all of these numbers? I'm assuming the student response is 8 squared plus 9 squared equals question mark. Okay. My response would be, yeah, A squared plus B squared, 100% correct. But we can't put a question mark in because that's not what the formula tells us. The formula tells us that it needs to be C squared, right? So our equation would look like 8 squared plus 9 squared equals C squared. So now it's just basic algebra. We need to figure out, or before we get to the algebra, we need to figure out what the square roots are of these questions. Can anybody tell me what a square root is? I'm assuming that the student response is it's the base number multiplied however many times by that other base number. So I'm assuming that the student's responding with 8 times 8. And my response would be perfect. Okay, somebody else tell me what 9 squared is. 9 times 9. Perfect. So for our equation, we are going to get 64 plus 81 equals what squared? I'm assuming the class says C squared. Okay. And my next question is, what do we do from here? We have 64 plus 81 equals C squared. What should we do next? Let's follow the rules of algebra here. I'm assuming the student response is we add the numbers. Yes, we absolutely add the numbers in this. So it'll be 81 plus 64, and you will get 145 equals C squared. Okay, so we have 145 equals C squared. Are we done? Are we done with the equation? Did we just solve Pythagorean theorem? I'm assuming the student response is, yeah. No, we are not done with Pythagorean theorem. We need to come up with, we need to isolate the variable to get C equals 145 or question mark. C equals question mark. We don't know what C equals yet because we haven't taken the square root of 145 to figure out what the square root of that number is. Once we get that, that's how we know that we're done and that we solve for the hypotenuse. Okay. So if everybody could pull out their calculators and let's do the algebra first. Okay. So can somebody tell me how we're going to solve this? Assuming the student response is uh, multiply by the square root on both sides, or sorry, divide by the square roots on both sides. Perfect. So you're going to divide by the square, divide by the square. Okay, so what is our equation now? I'm assuming the class says 145 equals C. Sorry, square root of 145 equals C. Sorry, I want to scratch that last part. We're not multiplying or dividing. We're taking the square root of both sides and then plugging that in. Okay, so assuming student response is square root of 145 equals C, which is correct, but it needs to be simplified. And the way that we simplify it is by using our calculators and typing in square root 145, enter. And that number would be 12.04. So after all of this, you get 12.04. Can anybody tell me what the 12.04 represents? I'm assuming the student response is that is the length of the hypotenuse that we just solved for. Perfect. Spot on. That is exactly why we use Pythagorean theorem. It is very, very important, or this is why it's important to understand all the sides, because say that we had one of the opposite or the adjacent angles missing. The process is a little bit different, which we will go over next. But we solved for the hypotenuse and we got 12.04. Okay. Now I'm going to hand you guys a guided practice sheet, and you guys are going to work on these, or we're going to walk through the first two problems together as a class. Make sure that everybody understands this. If they have any questions, feel free to shout them out or ask. I'm assuming that these are the prompts that I would use while solving for these first two problems that are on the guided worksheet. We're going to go through the sides. It's going to be similar to the process that I just went through. It's what are the sides? What does A, B, and C represent? Which side are we solving for, or which one are we missing? How do we set up the equation? What is our answer once we get that variable isolated? And then finding it in our calculator. Assuming that that goes well, we are going to move to small group practice, where we have groups of 4, and they will be split up based off of their disability or their different needs, and put kids that are at a similar level in the same group to make sure that they understand what they're doing and that they are able to work well together. So in my groups it could be a student that has an IEP and have them with a gen ed student, a friend, and maybe another student who's struggling. So I feel like that group would be able to communicate well with one another. And after we go through the small group practice, which will be on the whiteboards, and we'll do that collectively together as a class to see where everybody is at, to ensure that I know that everybody is doing what they are supposed to be doing. We will be doing an exit ticket. This is after everything is done. We will have an exit ticket. You guys will have 2 problems, and the 2 problems that I want you to answer are, the first question is going to be a triangle, and I want you to label all the sides on those triangle to make sure that I know that you guys know. And then the second question is going to be you guys solving for a missing side of a triangle, so that I could see if anybody has issues with this concept, see if I need to review a little bit more when we come back from class next time, all of that fun stuff. So what I need for you guys to do now is do your exit ticket. And once you're done, you can go and grab your phones. And from there, you guys are good to go. And that's my piece for today.